Alameda LAFCO meeting, September 12th, 2019.
I'd like to call LAFCO committee meeting to order for September 12th. The first item of business would be to have Pcas lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Pico. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hagerty,
I'm here.
Commissioner Splendorio,
Here.
Commissioner Marchand,
Here.
Commissioner Thornton, Commissioner Miley, Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Wieskamp, here, Commissioner Halbert,
Here.
Commissioner Valle, Commissioner Von Heger Leopold, here, Commissioner Pico.
Here. Is Valle on the commission? No.
Yeah, he's the alternate.
So, well, I'll get it figured out by the time I retire. Public comment, a time in which you can speak to anything that's not on today's agenda. Anybody wish to speak? I have no speaker cards. Going once, going twice. So, yeah, you did. You missed your chance. Consent calendar consists of 4A through 4E. We have 3 approval meeting days. Consent calendar.
I'll second.
Motion by Marchand, seconded by Wieskamp. Is there any objection to the motion? Motion passed without objection. We'll go to item 5.
Thank you, Chair. This item is for the commission to.
Sure, Mike,
I'll put this one. Can you guys hear me all right now? So this item is for the commission to receive the end of the year budget report for fiscal year 2018 and 2019. Alameda LAFCO adopted budget totaled $796,843, and actual expenses for that fiscal year totaled $458,345. And this is an amount representing 68.9% of the fiscal of the budgeted total. This resulted in operating surplus of $246,269 and included a $176,000 fund balance transfer to offset agency apportionments for that fiscal year. The Commission saw a decrease in spending in legal and planning services to account for the surplus, as well as savings from the recruitment and hiring of the executive officer position. Staff recommends the Commission accept and file the report and provide direction to staff with respect to interrelated matters for future consideration.
Okay, thank you for that report. Are there any questions? Anybody in the public wish to speak? Turn the speaker cards. So, with that, move alternative 1.
I'll second.
I have a motion for alternative 1. That is to accept and file the report as presented, provide direction as needed for staff with respect to integrated matters for future consideration. Did you want to provide any input? Yes. Okay, then with that, is there any objection to the motion? Motion passed without objection. Thank you. We will move to item 6.
So, Alameda LAFCO will consider the proposal by the California Association of Local Agency Formation Commissions, known as CalLAFCO, a new due structure as a response to the agency's ongoing structural budget deficit ahead of a vote at the annual business meeting on Thursday, October 31st at CalLAFCO's annual conference in Sacramento. Now, the new due structure involves a base charge of $1,000 per LAFCO and a payment increase based upon 2020 population estimates from the California Department of Finance. And this also includes a per capita rate set by the CalLAFCO Board of Directors. The new due structure would increase Alameda LAFCO's membership dues by $1,000 from $9,662 to $10,662. The proposed new due structure is set to address equitable distribution of membership costs between rural, suburban, and urban LAFCOs, as well as reduce CalLAFCO's shortfall. Now, this item is for the commission to consider whether to support or oppose Cal LAFCO's proposed new due structure and direct commission's voting delegate to vote accordingly at the annual business meeting scheduled for October 31st. But before I get to that, I would like to welcome Commissioner Mike McGill from Contra Costa LAFCO, a special district member, and Cal LAFCO Board of Directors representing the coastal region to answer any questions and provide an overview to the commission as to the new due structure.
Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners. As you heard, my name is Mike McGill. I'm a board member at Central Contra Costa Sanitary District, and from there I was elected to Contra Costa LAFCO, and from there I was elected to the Cal LAFCO Board, holding the special district seat in the coastal region, so I represent you. I don't per se have a presentation to do today, though I could do one extemporaneously if you'd like to. I chaired the ad hoc committee that evaluated this dues increase because we are facing a serious structural deficit given the current dues. It takes someplace between a 30 and 35% increase to try to fix that structural deficit. We spent a lot of time in that committee seeing were there any places we could really drive down costs. The answer was no. We were directed by the board to continue the level of service we had, which means 4 days a week from our executive director. We have maintained some reliance on conference profit, 15% each year, but we did not go any higher than that. We looked at the ability to do some advertising revenue, sponsorship revenue, and other items along those lines, and did not find any of those that would be suitably sustainable. The ad hoc committee recommended 2 options up to the full board. The full board tweaked those, came up with a 3rd option, which is the one in front of you. It was unanimously approved, and with that background that I don't call a presentation, I would be happy to answer questions, and I urge your support on this.
Questions? How is LAFCO, I guess what I would ask is how do we find ourselves in these deficit now? How did we get there? Have there been a series of not taking increases? Are salaries getting out of control? What's causing the deficit?
Well, there's a couple of different comments to that. One is, for a long time we lived on a level of reserves that finally our CPA said you've got to quit doing that. We're too deep into those reserves. We did increase our executive director from 3 days a week to 4 days a week, largely a result of, over the last few years, there's been a tremendous amount of legislation in Sacramento that impacts LAFCO. So we've been spending way more time on that. And you've seen some of this, whether it's dealing with the disadvantaged unincorporated communities, the efforts by some to bypass LAFCO completely, and we fight very hard to keep that from happening. It's just taking more time. And so the board said it's time to come up with, address this structural deficit. And ever since we went to this 4-region approach to Cal LAFCO, we need to get some better equity amongst the counties. The board also asked us to try to come up with a proposal that would keep all 58 counties engaged, because we're very proud right now of having all 58 counties as members.
And then, if I'm reading this right, it appears there's a cap, that the dues can't go any higher than a cap, and I believe that cap is $10,662.
Well, the way this works is, as your executive director said, there's a base dues of $1,000 per county. And then there's a per capita rate of something like 0.0013.
I understood that.
All the way up to 700,000 people. Once you get to that 700,000 people right now, you don't pay anymore. So Alameda, Contra Costa, Los Angeles are all paying the same dues.
Anybody else?
I think it makes sense. I think LAFCO needs help in Sacramento, and I certainly understand why we need to stay on top of a lot of things that are going on there. So it seems like a good way now. We need people to do our work for us, so I think it makes sense.
Some of us have signed CalAFCO to the board, state level.
Hold on, John, I'm trying to figure it out. We're supposed to be turning our mics on, right?
They're on. They're all on.
Is John on? Okay, I can hear. Go ahead, John.
Okay, so, many of us have been on the CalAFCO board, and I've seen great value in participating with that. I recently stepped down from the board, but at that time I saw where the state was, there were more and more issues coming to the state. There was legislation, as Mike pointed out, that was being promoted to circumvent LAFCOs. And I know that the executive director worked a lot with the local labor commission, especially on issues around healthcare, the health care districts. So when I first was elected to LAFCO, the training that's provided by the CalAFCO was invaluable. The conference was very valuable for me. I know that many of the folks have attended that as well. So I think that if we believe in the mission of LAFCO, certainly we need to support the efforts of CalAFCO. So I certainly support the dues increase.
Okay. So just one final question. How do we go forward? Is this going to solve the problem, or are we going to start looking at smaller increases?
Well, certainly in the immediate short term, it will solve the problem. We're going to be modifying the bylaws. Every year, the board will have to look at, do we either want to change the cap or change the per capita dues, if you vote yes. But our goal is to have a quote-unquote break even every year, and we will continue to watch that budget very closely.
Okay. Sean, was that a motion?
I would move that we support CalAFCO's proposed dues increase structure.
I'll second it, but I do have.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second under discussion.
My observation, and it's been a couple of years since I've been on the CalAFCO board, but the CalAFCO, because of all the legislation that's coming through, there's not the sufficient resources. And I think what you're saying is because of the legislation that's being proposed, we need to be more attentive, or at least the LAFCOs. I mean, CalAFCO is serving as that function, whether we like it or not. And in my observation, even when I was there for a couple of years, was if CalAFCO isn't doing it, who is going to do it? Is that going to be individual LAFCOs? So one way or another, we're probably going to pay. Now, it may affect each LAFCO differently because Alameda County may not care on something, Contra Costa may care. So my observation, if that's what's really going on, we're going to be stuck in a system. We're paying more one way or another. But to me, it's the treadmill's the problem. We're just getting so much legislation that, to me, that's the problem.
And you make a good point. I mean, we're getting pushed now to deal with these inactive LAFCOs. Certainly the larger LAFCOs like Alameda, you have resources to handle a lot on your own, much like Contra Costa can. And certainly Los Angeles has a ton. But there's a lot of small LAFCOs that can't. And the problem we run into is when a LAFCO fails in any way in Sacramento eyes, it casts a pall over all of us. And CalAFCO is important in making sure that doesn't happen.
I have a motion.
What's the overall increase in terms of total dollars that this is going to represent?
Well, it's about a 30% increase. I think we're going from 230,000 or plus to about 300,000. We were working against the $300,000 target
So you're
number.
looking at $70,000 spread over the state of California.
Yes.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there any objection to the motion? Motion will pass without objection. Thank you. I'll move to item 7.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Item 7.
The commission received a financial audit report prepared by Hirschwall and Company at its last regular meeting held on July 18, 2019. The report concludes Alameda LAFCO's tested statements show no material weaknesses or omissions and shows the commission's financial standing with an with unadjusted fund balance of $594,309. Today we have Audie Hirschwall from the Hirschwall Company here to present their findings on the financial report.
Audie, welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Council members. My name is Audie Hirschwall. I'm from Hirschwall and Company. We are a CPA firm and we did the audit for fiscal year 2018. We have an unmodified opinion, a clean opinion. No exceptions were found during the audit. I hope everybody has a copy of that draft audit report in front of them. I would like to bring your attention to page number 6. This identifies the total revenue. This identifies the total revenue for fiscal year 2018 as $609,893, and the total expenditure was $509,681.
I'm sorry, Audie. So I'm looking, page 6 of your opinion is
Page 40.
Is it really, is it further back? If you could look at a financial statement? It's page 10, okay.
Page
Ah,
10 is page
yes, the heading for the document would be change in net positions.
Okay, change the net position, okay.
So this identifies the revenue and expenditures and a surplus of $100,212. It identifies the beginning balance as $494,000 and the net position at the end was $594,309.
So excuse me, Commission, this is page 40 in the staff report.
It depends on where you start.
But it is 40.
Yeah. On the right. The number on the right.
Okay, I'm on the right page. It's page 6 or page 40, take your pick.
It's page 40 for you guys.
No, it says 6.
Oh, it does say
It
16.
says both. It has both.
Okay, perfect. So I would be referring to the number on the draft audit report. Okay. To continue, I would like to move to page number 13 on the draft audit report.
What's the title of what's your
This would be 47 for you guys on your packets.
is it a statement of net position?
Yes, statement of revenue, expenditure, and changes in fund balances.
Very good.
Go ahead.
Yes, so here it identifies the revenue and expenditures. And again, I would like to highlight there was a surplus for $100,000 and the beginning balance was $944,097. As there were no exceptions found in the audit report, there isn't any specific items I would like to highlight, so I would like to open to any specific questions you may have.
I wonder, you may not be able to answer this question, but What changed so drastically that we have this excess $100,000? What did we do good?
I would like to answer that specifically with the fact that this is the first audit LAFCO is doing after a long time. So we are not able to do a comparative analysis from last year. Usually an audit report would have comparative analysis from last year, so we would be able to identify what savings were accomplished.
So this in fact may be an accumulation.
I would certainly expect that.
Probably want to somebody to control LAFCO. That's cynical. Anybody else? Any other questions? Yes, sir. Commissioner
Just a
Johnson.
real quick question about the check writing process or procedures. Did you see any issues with that at all?
No exceptions were identified.
Okay.
Can you kind of briefly describe to me the process in which you went to do this audit?
Yes, absolutely. So there are strict guidelines as to how an audit is conducted. California State Board of Accountancy and AICPA clearly spells out all the procedures that needs to be done to get the audit. So,
I'm listening, actually.
oh, sorry.
So,
To elaborate, we request the entire GL for the fiscal year. So GL would be the general ledger, which would have all the transactions for the fiscal year. And then we do a sampling out of the GL, and then we test those samplings for supporting documents and accuracy.
So, Commissioner Pico, did you meet with the auditors?
Not yet, have met.
Huh?
No, we're scheduled to meet on October 30th.
So have you met with any commissioners?
No.
Wouldn't you do that if you were going to do an audit?
It would depend on the risk assessment that is done prior to starting the audit report and availability of the team.
So I've sat on some audit teams before at other boards, and I'm not saying they do it right, but it seems to me that whenever they start to do the audit, they either meet with like the chair of the board, maybe the chair of the finance committee, to say, is there anything you're concerned about? You know, do you see any, are you nervous about anything that's going on? They kind of have a discussion with the board and then kind of explain what it is they're going to do. So that wasn't done for this audit?
That specifically wasn't done for this audit.
Why?
It doesn't meet a lot of auditing thresholds. That's why LAFCO hasn't been doing the audit every year. The requirement is for $750,000, the expenses to be above that, to automatically trigger a requirement for the audit. So it does depend on the entity itself.
Okay. For me,
We didn't have an audit committee before this anyway.
well, yeah, they could have met with the chair and vice chair of LAFCO or something. I think for me that if you're around for the next audit, I don't know how many, I don't remember how many years your contract was, that I would suggest that maybe meet with board, you know, the board chair, vice chair, maybe we'll have the finance people there or whatever, and just, you know, I think it's healthy for you to have a discussion outside of staff to say, is there anything that you see? I'm not saying that I see anything, but I think as elected officials, it makes us feel better to know that, you know, we're involved and that we're trying to keep our name out of the paper. That, you know, if a problem does arise. So I think that just in the future would be something good that I would request you do. Commissioner Wieskamp?
At Park District, we did something different. After the audit was done and we had all read it, we had a private meeting of the executive team with the representative who was there, because it gave them a chance if they even had any hint of anything, they could talk to us before we went into the public session. And I thought that was valuable, just so we became aware of what could be happening, and that they were comfortable in telling us if they saw it. But that's just another
I
suggestion.
think that's been done, that too.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there has to be better communication
Well,
with
it's,
the
I
board.
think you can do both, not that big
Well,
complicated.
no, that's what I'm saying, you can do both.
Sure.
And it also is, just a better way of communicating.
Absolutely. We will put that note in our audit file and make sure we do a pre-interview and have another discussion once the draft report is issued.
Okay, Commissioner Marchand?
Well, in staff report, actually, we appointed the planning subcommittee
Yeah.
back in July. And actually states that it was going to meet the auditors.
Right.
So,
But they did.
right, I was curious, you're planning to meet them?
Yeah, later.
October third.
Yeah, we have, as far as I know, a tentative appointment for audit committee to meet on the 3rd of October.
Okay,
I
so
don't know if
Yeah,
that's
we're
changed
expected to
or not.
approve this today.
Well, maybe this is for the next year though, they're going to meet and set up the process.
Or if there's something that's strange in October, they come back to us and
Yeah.
meeting and call to our attention.
Well, I'm ready to move forward. I don't think that they need to meet in October, to be honest with you. I think
Yeah, I agree.
that's late. That's not timely, so.
I think you're looking to next year, it makes sense
That's
for
what
them to
I'm trying
meet
to
and
do.
talk, and let them talk about the process we just talked about.
Whether to be available in October, then to bring all that up
Yeah.
in anticipation of next
Set
year,
up the
so
system.
that we have it all in place. So I still see that in the meeting in October. And if anything, if there are any concerns from the committee, they bring it up at that time.
Right.
And then we're
Totally
set
fine.
with all of it.
However, when they approach next year's budget, I want you to meet with some commissioners first. You know, the chair of the audit committee, the chair of the commission, and maybe somebody else, and just have a discussion with them outside of staff. I think it's important.
Absolutely. We will certainly schedule that.
Okay, thank you. So,
That's why I asked.
Commissioner Spadroya?
Thank you, Scott. So, I'm gonna ask you, and ask Rachel, because Rachel's been in another LAFCO. We're June 30 fiscal year, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So when should we, whether it's the audit committee or other commissioners or the chair, in that fiscal year, when should that first meeting happen?
So once the fiscal year ends, then the team does its year-end closing of the books and creates the financials for the audit team. And we would certainly be able to schedule that meeting before we start the audit field work. So it could anywhere between 2 to 3 months after the year end. That would be an ideal time to schedule an initial meeting.
Okay, so we should have had this August or so. That first meeting should have happened in August. You
Yeah.
said 2 to 3 months.
Yes, but I'm exactly not sure when the management and the committee decided to hire the auditors. Since this was the first audit that was done since 2006.
All right, so 2 or 3 months after year end, and then should there be other meetings with commissioners or the audit committee? To, like, for example, to review your proposed findings before it comes back to the commission? Is that typical?
It is typical that they meet prior to starting the audit, and then it is typical that when the audit is complete, that they meet with the committee, go over their findings without staff there, and then it's typical to bring it to the board for action.
That is absolutely correct, and a lot of these procedures have been implemented after 2002 to have an audit committee and certainly have the commissioners have access to the auditors. So certainly that is exactly correct. So we would meet before we start the audit, and then we would meet once the draft report is ready, so that we would be able to discuss the audit report itself.
So if we do meet on October 3rd, whether we do or not, it seems to me that should be, if we're gonna meet, that should be set up a structure, right? That we know that after the books are closed, 2 or 3 months thereafter, the auditor meets with the audit committee and or commissioner or the chair, and then when the audit is presumably in draft form, meet again and to finalize it. Okay, that's what I'd like to have. Whether we establish it today or whether it's June or October 3rd, it seems to me that should be the process.
Absolutely.
Okay? How about a motion?
Move that we receive the final report.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there objection to the motion? It's backwards, but there's nothing you can do about it. It's not pretty, but we'll get it the next time. So with that, motion passes, no objections, so we move to item 8.
Thank you.
So, staff request for the annexation of the Doug Martin's Regional Park to continue the annexation proposal to the next regular meeting scheduled for November 14th. This is apologies from me, given that there were 2 misidentified parcels north of the original annexation area, to be concluded after a conversation with representatives from Union Sanitary District. And I just want to make sure that this proposal is clean and presented so that there's no confusion to the annexation area. And I'm working with Union Sanitary District to clarify those parcels and have it returned at a November meeting.
Fine. So items continued until the November meeting. Item 9.
So the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act of 2000 under Government Code Section 56668 provides the authority and procedures for initiation, conduct, and completion of changes of organization and reorganization of cities and districts. The Act specifies the factors that LAFCO is required to consider in the review of a proposal for a change of organization, including, among other things, per capita assessed valuation, the proposal's consistency with city or county general and or specific plans, as well as transportation plans and land use plans. Now, priority conservation areas assembled in 2008 by the Association of Area Governments, AVAG, asked local interest groups and agencies around the region to identify unprotected places such as pastures, forests, shorelines, and creeks as a conservation priority. A relatively new mapping tool known as Greenprint, developed by Greenbelt Alliance, the Nature Conservancy, Bay Area Open Council, American Farmland Trust, and the Green Info Network, allows for the public to identify, map, and measure priority conservation areas through this mapping tool. Staff has demoed it, and it works pretty well. You can look at other ecosystem values within that as well. So moving forward, staff proposes to review whether a proposed change of organization lies within this priority conservation area as one of its mandatory factors in review of boundary proposals and in conjunction with Alameda LAFCO's growth management duties. This factor won't be determinative in the overall accepting or approving a proposal, but it believes that this should be under consideration when commissions review a change of organization boundary proposal. And staff would like to return the item to the chair for commission discussion and or feedback.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Commissioner Pico, I think this was kind of started by you, correct?
I'm not sure.
I would say it wasn't started by Commissioner Pico, but it was in response to one of his questions
Right.
at a last report.
Right. So, does anybody have any questions? Ralph? Or Sean?
I think it's appropriate to look at it.
Yeah, I just know that there's so many rules on these priority conservation areas already. And if I remember right, it's not a whole lot of money. Is that correct? If you develop a priority conservation area, then you go for the grant, Ray Bagger MPC, it's not a lot of money for a PCA.
That I believe I would have to check back on that exactly.
Yeah, but my concern is that I think it's only $5,000, to be honest with you. And it might be 10. But my concern is if we start layering on additional work too, and really all we're trying to do is create a conservation area, it seems a little ludicrous that we're gonna just pile on a bunch of regulations or slow it down believe me, they're gonna have to go through enough scrutiny to be a PCA within ABAG. So I
You
throw
think
that out
there's
from my
enough?
thoughts. I think there is. I think that, look, anytime MTC does something, it comes with loaded rules, and MTC's involved in the PCAs too, as they are in the PDAs. So, I don't know, I like alternative 3. I know staff is recommending alternative 1, but, I don't know, kind of where I'm at. Somebody else? Swan?
I'll ask a question. I wasn't here on today, but I'm trying to read through this, but I'm perplexed. The act has this as a factor, right? Am I reading the staff report properly?
So the act has at least 17 factors now, and what staff is proposing is to just review whether an affected territory lies within a priority conservation area as an additional factor.
Within our policies?
Within the Cortez and not Hertzberg, that we were,
So these are elective for a commission to consider those 17 factors? Is that what you're saying?
it's mandatory actually.
So then why do we need this? It's mandatory.
Because a priority conservation area is not included in one of those factors. So staff is proposing an additional factor to review in those mandatory factors.
Okay, so it's not within the 17, we're adding one. And would this, if we voted in favor of this, would we add it to one of our policies? Isn't that where this would reside?
I believe so. I don't know, I can't say that we would have to refer to it in our policy, but it would, going forward, we would review, going forward, yes, as one of our policies for change of organization proposals, we would include 18 factors.
So, I think Andrew wants to say something, but I want to understand. So there are certain factors that LAFCOs can consider that aren't necessarily among the 17 mandatory. Is that right?
Correct.
Right. So is there a limit on what we can require in terms of factors to consider that are elected? There has to be some bumpers around our jurisdiction.
As long as we're not inflicting upon any land use plans or designations, then we can review it.
We could consider it, what you're saying, we could consider it. Okay, so the question is, to add this as another item for us to consider as a factor.
Correct.
Sorry to rehash this, but I
No, correct.
wanted to hear it out.
Thank you.
No, I was going to comment in response to that question, Commissioner Splendorio. Subsection G of the statute directs the Commission to review a regional transportation plan adopted pursuant to Section 65.080. The PCAs are obviously a component of one of those plans, and so I think one way to think about what is being proposed is it's describing the way in which your staff might analyze the regional transportation plan and its impact on the proposal. So it's providing further definition to how it is your commission would go about looking at the transportation plan as it applies to a given application, and give some direction to applicants as to what sort of scrutiny and approach the commission will take. And direct your staff along those lines as well.
Right, so wouldn't this be analyzed at the city level if there's a boundary change? Or I guess it's or at the county level? Wouldn't, and what I'm trying to get to is, would we be the first people to look at something like this? Or would we be the second or third that look at it?
Good question. I would think though it depends given the annexation, because we're looking at, let's say for Bayside Acres, whether it's in a priority conservation area, depending on the annexation, I think it would be a factor to consider, and I believe perhaps it might be reviewed by a city official, but given that LAFCO, we're trying to see how this affects orderly development and growth within an area, and if we're, extending wastewater services or water services to an area that is deemed high priority and might be overlooked by a city plan, we could be the first to review it.
I'm just trying to put an unnecessary burden on it. I don't think it's fair for us to have a second. It's already been analyzed. We can either look at it, say yes or no, we agree, we don't agree, but I don't want to do it independent. That's what I'm concerned about, it's an unnecessary burden.
All I'll say is it's not determinative to the whole annexation or change of organization proposal. It's just to be able to say to the commission and provide information to say, yes, this is in a high priority conservation area, no, it is not, and for the commission to decide and to have that information available.
So you'll identify.
Correct.
I'd be behind that part of it, but.
How many PCAs are in Alameda County?
That I can't say for sure. I want to say between maybe a little over 1,000, but I can't
You
say
want
for
more
sure.
information before we do this?
I would like to know, that is an awful high number.
Why don't we get more information and start the rest?
And for example, and the only reason I'm asking the question is because I think there are a couple PCAs in maybe in Fremont somewhere, but the majority of them are Measure D land, if I remember in the map well. So to me, it seems like that's kind of a non-starter anyways. You're not going to do anything out there. So, I mean, because it's in Measure D. And I think I need more information to know how many priority, can we have a map of where the PCAs
Yeah,
are?
I like that.
Okay,
I mean,
yes.
some of us should know, because some of us have applied for them, for the PCAs or the PDAs. I think just about every city has a PDA, at least a couple. John has a map, I'm sure. But,
There is a map in the staff report, and you're right, Scott, it is, most of them are, at least in terms of, it's the green, the lime green, or whatever color that green, they're most in the eastern part of the county.
right, which is Measure D land, so to me, it seems like we're just spinning our wheels on nothing. It's not gonna build, so, but. I think it has maybe I could do that right here. There you go.
Mayor,
It's one of the policies that this LAFCO initiated 2 years ago, possibly 3, is that spheres of influence would be granted for the purpose of preservation, not just for the provision of services. So that's a change that we made. It was a policy decision. So it may be that you assign a sphere of influence not to build anything, but to preserve agricultural lands or areas of sensitive areas.
Well, I mean, at the map I'm looking at, most of those PCAs are in Measure D area. So, I doubt anything's gonna happen there. But I would like to know how much of this green in Alameda County equates to a PCA. And I think my recollection was correct when I thought there was one in the Fremont area, most in the Measure D area. It appears there's some around I think that's Alameda and the shoreline. That might be Contra Costa. This map's hard to read for me anyways. So maybe you could give us some more information and bring it back in November.
So staff will be happy to identify the PCAs using the green print tool and then bring that back to you. And whether you would like to include it or not as a mandatory factor, that is up to the commission, but I wanted to provide that information for the commission to do so.
Thank you. I think we appreciate the work. If we could just get a little bit more information, that would be helpful.
Thank you, Chair.
Did anybody else have anything they wanted to add on this? please add something, because I lost your spot to the agenda. All right, item 10, matters initiated by the commission.
I do have something.
Splendid.
And it pains me. So Rachel, I know I put a phone call. So I've gotten calls from brokers representing people in Redmond Track and in Happy Valley who want to apply for out-of-service area agreements. And Pleasanton staff is telling them that the county and LAFCO and the city of Pleasanton are in some sort of negotiations on an MOU. And I don't have any recollection of anything like that. I thought this was an issue that we resolved, that, you know, we had our time where we were trying to solve this, or not solve it, but just dealing with a lot of out-of-service area agreements that were not properly processed through Pleasanton and through LAFCO, and we thought we resolved most of those. And which to me meant, because we were holding up a lot of people, not we, but collectively, the Royal, we were holding up, and those people should be broken loose, and they should be applying, and apparently not. And I'm just gonna ask that you look into this, and I don't know why, I've seen a piece of paper with Pleasanton Stationery saying, we're not processing because there's an MOU being negotiated with LAFCO and the county, and for the life of me, we've never talked about it here in the last year and a half. I couldn't give this broker any explanation. Beyond me.
Hey, you have anything on this? Hey, Jerry's not here. Do you guys have anything on this? Or do you
So-
want to look into this and get back to
The
us?
staff is definitely looking into this and we'll get back to the commission.
Okay.
Thank you.
Maybe Pleasant's continuing to sneak people in, contrary to what we agreed to.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Oh, wow, what a suspicious group.
Yeah.
They've
All right.
done it for years, why shouldn't they?
Yeah, change that behavior now. And then we'll have to look the other way on the fees. Item 11.
So for current and pending proposals, staff has received a change of organization application from Alameda County Mosquito Abatement District requesting annexation of the city of Albany to provide mosquito abatement services to the entire county of Alameda. The affected territory totals 394.4 acres, and the application is currently under administrative review and deemed incomplete at this time.
It's been decades in the making.
What a battle.
So we should see that sometime soon.
Okay.
For item B, progress report on and work plan. I just want to give an update. QK Associates will present at our next meeting a draft report on the MSR for water, wastewater, stormwater, and flood control services. And staff is also working on a request for proposal for fire protection services, MSR, to be presented at our next policy and budget committee meeting. In regards to the strategic plan update, workshop update, our strategic planning meeting is scheduled for Monday, December 16th at 10 a.m. at the Martinelli Center in Livermore, and we will have Bill Chide as our facilitator. If you have any thoughts, ideas on programming, topics of discussion, please contact staff, and we would like to consider those for the workshop, but more details and announcements on programming to come. And lastly, Cal LAFCO Board of Directors nominations and annual achievement awards. At our last meeting, the commission selected its voting delegate for the annual business meeting, but nominations for Cal LAFCO Board of Directors seat for either the city or public member are still welcome and due to Cal LAFCO by September 30th. Additionally, Cal LAFCO has announced nominations for the 2019 Annual Achievement Awards due also by September 13th. So if anyone would like to nominate someone or has a award that they would like to present for a nomination, please do so now.
Like right now?
Or-
Got one?
Or if they're still considering it, please notify the chair
There you go. Or Rachel.
or staff.
All right.
Yeah.
And then the last announcement is the 2019 annual conference from October 30th through November 1st in Sacramento. So commissioners can still register, but hotel rooms are running out, so please let staff know if you're still interested in attending.
They having a Halloween party?
I don't, it's not on schedule, but.
No, it is. They are.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Oh, well, excuse me.
Right, there's a Halloween
So
party.
we're kind of
Custom party.
Mayor Marshall.
Just recognize the high bar for the awards that 2017 Splendid was outstanding Cal LAFCO members.
Well, I intend to nominate Scott, but I think that next year is the right, if you're retiring next year.
Okay.
It might be the right time, okay? For outstanding
Wonderful
24
time.
years.
Yeah, okay. I would, adjournment of the regular meeting, next commission meeting, okay, why don't we wait on adjourning? So the next commission meetings are, you have the policy and budget committee meeting on October 3rd at 2 o'clock, and then the regular meeting November 14th, 2 o'clock here. When do we go back to the whole building, or we just decided we like this one?
We will check back in, hopefully sometime New Year, but we are scheduled, we're unsure at this time, honestly.
Georgie.
I like this building, it's got soothing lighting,
Agreed.
puts me in a much better mood. So if there's nothing else, I would like to send everybody home, or wherever you
Where
go.
do you wanna go?
Goodbye.
I would like Ralph to tell us his good news that he shared yesterday. It made me feel good.
Okay. So as most of you know, about a year and a half ago, my teenage grandson suffered a severe spinal cord injury, which left him completely paralyzed from the neck down. He's been in Colorado at a hospital called Craig Hospital, which is a spinal injury clinic, for the last year and a half. In the summertime, he started a new series of treatment that will actually, it's a higher level of electrical stimulation on the spine. My wife and I were there in July. We watched his first treatment, and it seemed to be very effective. And about 2 weeks ago, he actually took his first steps. So he walked 18 feet. Took him 6 minutes, but he still made it. So he's really making a lot of progress. And the series of treatments probably now will take him through November. Hopefully he'll be home by Christmas and maybe even walking a little bit.
He's a tough guy, and it's a great. How could you get better news than that?
He's also on schedule. He's classwork. He's due to graduate with his class next year. He graduated high school next year on time. So
You should be very proud of it.
Well,
And he
if
is.
he wants to get that diploma.
yeah,
Are they retrofitting the house for him, or is that something
they did
else?
that already.
Yeah, I saw that on the news a couple of
Yeah.
times.
That was a painful experience for us.
Really?
Well, my wife and I. Well, it's a long story. My son-in-law had 2 friends. He was a football player at De La Salle. So there was a bunch of contractors at De La Salle that were friends of his that decided that the whole house needed to be redone. He also had an architect friend who thought he could help. So the 2 of them wanted to run the job. So my wife and I actually ended up running it for a while. And long story short, they virtually tore the house down, which meant it had to be all seismically retrofitted. It's
Something,
Yeah,
good
it's actually-
intentions. Good intentions gone
Good
wrong.
Well, it came out okay in the press.
Yeah, no, those guys these 2 guys, my son-in-law and daughter are back in Colorado. They were telling them that my wife and I were going to have heart attacks. It was too much stress for us. So they said, Mom and Dad, you've got to get out of this. So we did. The architect then took over, and he just made a bundle of all the stuff. So here's an architect. When I asked him, do you have a structural engineer? And he goes, well, I use this guy that works at Caltrans.
Oh,
So he can do overpass.
Bridges are expensive.
are good.
Bad on the house, but good on the grandson. So there. So that's the good news, everybody. Remember when you're feeling bad about that.